Fellow perfectionists, before you beat yourself up over any procrastination habits, I need you to pause. And if you're thinking, well, I'm not a perfectionist, but you care deeply about the quality of your work or your relationships, then this still applies to you. The truth is, it's not always about your mindset and your willpower. Sometimes it's the conditions around you that are causing you to stall. And today I'm revealing 5 environmental factors that might be quietly amplifying your struggles. And you might have the power to change them, challenge them, or even walk away. By the end of this video, you'll know how to run what I call an environmental radar scan. It's a practical way to identify external obstacles keeping you stuck, whether in your work or relationship goals. And here's why this matters. If you don't learn to scan your environment, you risk wasting time trying to painstakingly fix yourself when the real solution could be far more practical and sitting right in front of you. A couple of years ago, I was working with a client who told me she was feeling like a complete failure. And this was because she hadn't finished an important presentation on time at work, and it caused her issues at work. She kept saying that she'd had a whole week to do it. I had a whole week to do it. I should have managed my time better. But then I walked her through my environmental radar scan, and this completely shifted her perspective. Yes, indeed, there were things she could have done differently, but she also realized something else. She'd been given just 1 week to complete what was really a 2-month project. There were no proper resources and expectations were vague. And this all contributed to her procrastination and her late submission. She didn't miss the deadline because she was disorganized. She was carrying the weight of full responsibility for a situation that was only even partially in her control. This is what I see all the time. Perfectionist women taking 100% responsibility for outcomes that they only partly control. And this lets everyone else off the hook. Now, let me be clear, okay? This isn't about dodging personal accountability or blaming everyone else. It's about accurate assessment. Because the reality is there are people at work or in your personal life who totally capitalize on your tendency to take too much of the responsibility. They capitalize on the fact you're more likely to always blame yourself and not expect anything from them. They take advantage of this. Yes, by all means, sometimes the adjustment is personal. It could be about reevaluating your approach or closing a skills gap. But other times, the real blockers are external and they need to be met with boundaries, negotiation, or change. I'm sharing this because as perfectionists, or simply as people who care deeply about how we show up and what we contribute, we often overlook those external factors, not out of denial, but because noticing them can push us into challenge and confrontation, and that's not easy. If you're anything like me, you've spent years compensating for broken systems and for people who project their issues onto others, convincing yourself that it was your job to make the impossible work. And in the process, you took on way too much responsibility for things you should never have owned. Somewhere along the way, you've been trained or pressured to take personal responsibility for failures that were never fully yours or yours at all. Real growth comes from knowing what's truly yours to fix and what's the environment's to change. A concept that really shaped how I think about this is Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to go into a psychology lecture, but the idea is very powerful. Bronfenbrenner showed that we don't exist in isolation. We are shaped by layers of our environment, the people closest to us, the systems we work in, and even the wider culture that we live in. And when I first came across this, it all clicked, to be honest, because perfectionists often act as if we live in a vacuum, assuming every failure or blocker is on us. But Bronfenbrenner's work proves the complete opposite, that our struggles exist inside an ecosystem. And that's where my environmental radar scan comes in. It's my way of making this practical, and I use it with clients to help them separate what's truly theirs to work on and what belongs to the environment, so they can decide whether to recalibrate, challenge, or make a change. Unfortunately, and it does sadden me, but we've become an extremely individualistic world where everything is framed as your problem alone. That mindset conveniently removes any expectation of collective responsibility and that we can lean on each other. And it also lets people dodge responsibility when their actions negatively impact other people. But we know the truth. The truth is we don't exist in a void, and we are social beings impacted and influenced by the social conditions around us and the people around us. It's human nature. So before you jump to blame yourself for any struggle, whether it's procrastination or not making progress in a certain area of your life, you need what I call an environmental radar scan. Yes, you will spot your own limitations, but you'll also identify external factors that need to be addressed. While everyone else is lighting candles, thinking that's going to fix everything, we're over here taking a genuinely holistic and practical approach to our challenges. Sometimes you don't need to be more mindful. You just need to set a boundary. You just need to change your job or step back from friends who never show up for you. The first environmental factor is time, or what I call the realistic timeline assessment. I get asked this all the time. How do I stop procrastinating? But the better question is the timeline realistic for what you have to accomplish? And do you genuinely have the time and headspace for this right now? At work, this could look like you compensating for someone else's poor planning, like the client example that I shared at the beginning. In relationships, it might mean being pressured to process emotions before you're ready, or being expected to respond instantly when you actually need space, or just generally being expected to do things that are not at the right time for you. Because we all move at different paces, yet we rarely stop to ask how we personally experience time and how much external pressure is forcing us to operate outside that. A client of mine realized she was not a chronic procrastinator at all. She was chronically being handed impossible deadlines. That's what the problem was. Once she learned to push back, sometimes negotiating time, or other times she documented why it was unworkable, she stopped carrying 100% of the blame for outcomes she couldn't fully control. For me, I realized that rushing never really helped me produce my best work. Everyone's different, like I said, but for me, it just didn't. It actually helped me to avoid procrastination when I gave myself space to think and move with my natural rhythms and seasons. So here are 3 questions you can ask yourself about this. How much time do I truly need? How much time is the environment expecting? And what can I do to close the gap? The second environmental factor is support. We often imagine sabotage as someone actively blocking us, but sometimes the worst sabotage isn't active at all. It's silence. It's the information not shared. It's the encouragement withheld. It's the support that never shows up. At work, this might look like a boss who doesn't tell you about tools or training that could make your job easier, or leaves out key details about a stakeholder you need to win over. In relationships, it could be that friend who never cheers when you succeed, or who takes your effort for granted without ever giving back. If you're a perfectionist, you might be overcompensating for a lack of support. And the answer is not to work harder. The answer is to get clear on what you actually expect from a boss, a friend, a partner. Identify what specific support you truly need and communicate those needs openly. And if it's not there, find it elsewhere. And when necessary, hold people accountable for not showing up as they should. But don't pour too much energy into it, in my view, because if your idea of what it means to be a friend, a boss, or a partner is completely different from theirs, you'll spend all your time trying to teach, coach, and give out all this energy from an empty cup. and that will only leave you feeling frustrated. Sometimes the healthiest move is to accept that your values and expectations are misaligned. And from that place of clarity, you can decide the best action forward. The third environmental factor is expectations. Are the expectations others place on you clear, fair, and appropriate? Because the truth is, unclear or unrealistic expectations will paralyze anyone, perfectionist or not. But for perfectionists, it's even trickier. And this is because once you prove you can deliver excellence, people start shifting the goalposts. What was once your good, which would count as excellent for someone else, suddenly becomes needs improvement. And your great becomes the bare minimum that everyone feels entitled to. That's why you need to do 3 things: clarify, set boundaries, and communicate openly. At work, when expectations shift, don't just absorb it, document it. So that could mean saying something like, just to confirm, the new expectation is X. In relationships, stop mind reading or over-delivering because people know you care. Ask directly, what do you expect from me? If you're already feeling exposed by just these 3 factors, keep watching, because factors 4 and 5 will show you where you actually have more power than you realize. The 4th environmental factor is thinking partners, people you can think with, share ideas with, and test your thinking against. Perfectionists often operate solo, expected to emerge with everything fully formed because we care about getting things done well, and many of us often do achieve that. Yet most don't have enough thinking partners. So you think alone, you struggle alone, and you perfect alone. And this isolation is not just exhausting, it's limiting your potential. Your best ideas come from iteration, not isolation. So at work, this could look like requesting iteration opportunities and sharing draft versions, or testing your ideas with people you trust who will give you quality feedback and insight. You could say, for instance, here's my early thinking on this. What am I missing? In relationships or friendships, it might mean saying, I'm thinking through something, can you listen? Or sharing lessons you've learned with someone who can reflect with you. If people resist being thinking partners for you at work, then that's a red flag, because it often signals a highly competitive, unsupportive, or uncollaborative environment. And it's not a good kind of competition, it's a toxic kind. The same applies to your personal life. If you don't feel safe sharing unfinished or imperfect ideas with anyone close to you, think about why. Is this an opportunity to look for new and different qualities in the people you seek to build relationships with, or to communicate your needs more clearly, perhaps? Either way, it's a signal to evaluate the environment around you, because the people and systems you rely on should support your thinking, not block it. Thinking partner should be part of what I call your relational wealth portfolio. That portfolio is the network of people who actively support your growth. If you don't have enough, that's not a personal failing, it's an environmental gap that you can actively address. And if you want practical guidance on building this portfolio strategically, check out my Relational Wealth Portfolio workshop. The link is in the description below. The 5th and final environmental factor is authority and decision-making power. This is really crucial and could be contributing to your procrastination or you getting stuck with your goals. The problem is that sometimes your responsibilities don't match your authority. This has become an explicit recent trend, with companies expecting you to influence senior levels, but without any seniority. But in hierarchical organizations, influence is usually tied to formal authority. So what can you do? At work, if you're accountable but lack decision rights, think about whether you can negotiate for authority to match your responsibility. And in relationships, if you manage everything but can't set boundaries or influence the direction of the relationship, what needs to shift? Think about it. And for your health, if you're responsible for outcomes but have no control over your schedule, what can you reclaim back? As a coach for the last 9 years, I've seen talented women burn out in this area. The rule is simple. Either your authority should match your responsibility, or you adjust your responsibility to match your authority. Here's the trap perfectionists fall into. We've been trained to always look inward first. And while self-reflection is valuable, when you're already inclined to over-responsibility, it can blind you to something crucial. Sometimes the real issue isn't you at all. It's the environment around you, impossible timelines, missing support, or shifting and unfair expectations. While others are chasing productivity hacks to solve systemic problems, we're taking a more honest approach and asking, what's influencing me and how do I influence it back, or step away altogether if I need to? So here's my question for you. Drop a comment below. Which environmental factor have you been overcompensating for? And if this resonated, take my free perfectionist reality check quiz, because it shows where perfectionism helps versus harms across work, relationships, and health. The link's in the description below. Thank you for being here with me. I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, remember, stop apologizing, start strategizing.